Welcome to the podcast. My name is Jamie Knight, and I'm a realtor with Real Broker right here in Cajun Country, Lafayette, Louisiana. The goal of this podcast is to add massive value by bringing insider access to our area's top agents and from agents around the South. My hope is that you take a few things away from their experiences to grow your own business. Y'all, my guest today is a dear friend who is the executive director of agents relations for Century 21 Elite, the largest Century 21 firm in Louisiana, Christie Tricky. Welcome to the podcast, Christy. How are
Hi,
you?
I am well. I'm excited to be on.
All right. And Christy and I go way back. We started real estate together in around 2003, 2004. And Christy was the woman back in the day for sure. She was so amazing. As a rookie, she did over 320 transactions her first year as a rookie. So Christy definitely practices what she preaches. So excited to hear some of that. So go back a little bit with us. Go back to 2003, 2004 when baby Jamie and baby Christy got into the real estate business at Century 21. I want to hear the background and
I came on with Jay Smith with Century 21 Gateway in Lafayette, and I think you followed 6 months later. Yeah, when I started, I'll never forget sitting across the table from Jay and remember him saying, "Well, what do you expect to do in your first year?" And I said, "Well, I kind of like to make over $100,000." And he started laughing at me and he said, "Oh, you're very optimistic, I see." And I said, "Yeah, I'm extremely optimistic." And he's like, "Well, look, let me knock you down a couple of levels. Okay. You're probably not going to do $100,000 in your first year. You'll be lucky to do 24 to 36,000." And I'm like, "Poop on that." I'm going to prove you wrong.
I love it.
And so anyway, I got started, and I'll never forget my first client was D. Stanley, who was the city administrator of Lafayette. He was right underneath the mayor. I'll never forget going into his office and him saying, "Why should I choose you as an agent?" And I'm sitting in this massive office on the top floor of this skyrise building, okay, and I'm overlooking the city, and I'm like, "What am I doing here?" I had not even taken my first listing, okay, and he sits there and he says, "Why should I choose you over another agent?" And I said, "Well, your seasoned agents, they're all gonna have their own listings. They're gonna be working those listings like they should, and, they've got a lot of work to do. But let me tell you, this is the only listings I'm going to have, and I'm going to work my butt off to get them sold. That's why you want to choose me." And he said, "I like you, kid. I'm going to take you." And I listed these 3 rental properties. And when I listed them in one day, I had 120 investors call me on these homes. Well, Jamie, I started writing down all these investors' names because I knew that they wanted to buy real estate and they were hungry. So I wrote every single name down. I got those 3 houses under contract within 48 hours, all 3 of them, okay? But that was not the value. The value was I had 120 investors in my back pocket now. And what I started doing was I met with this developer who had 35 acres of land. He was a postman when he met me, okay? He had 35 acres of land and he says, "I want to develop this land." And I said, "Well, what if I find a group of investors that will come in and buy the land if you lay the infrastructure and you sell it to them at a discount?" And he said, "Well, I'll tell you what, if you do that, I'll give you an 8% listing on this property." Well, guess what? 2 days later, I made those phone calls to all those investors. I got 7 of them on board, and they wrote up a contract to put that entire development under contract so that they could buy the land for 21,000 a lot and turn around and flip them for 48 to 55,000 a lot. And so I went in with a contract. He gave me the listing on it, 8%. I was dual agent on it, and I sold my first development. When I sold my first development, that's when I started partnering all of these investors with builders. I said, "Now that you got the land, why don't I partner you up with a builder and y'all could build a house together and then split profits?" And so that took off. Well, then 2 ladies came into town called Katrina and Rita. You had one that hit New Orleans and you had one that hit Lake Charles. And all of a sudden, Jamie, you know as well as I do, we start getting these phone calls, and all of a sudden, the whole inventory that we had was flipped upside down. And in a matter of 2 days, every house went off the market, and we had an influx of population growth of over 60,000 people in like a 2-day period. It was insane. So now we had all of these people in our city that needed housing desperately. So it was like, feet don't fail me now, grass don't grow under my feet. We got to hit it and hit it hard. And that's when I went in with these investors and these developers, and I said, let's start laying the groundwork for all these developments. And before contracts or houses were even built, I was getting these contracts signed and just hand delivering it to these builders. Build this house, build this house, build this house. And it just exploded overnight. I mean, exploded. I was doing roughly around 30 to 50 million in my first year.
Let's
And
go.
and that was with my team that I was, cutting that in half because I had so much. I mean, Jamie, you know how much I was giving away. I just couldn't handle it. It was so much business that almost every agent in our office had listings from me for a long time.
Yeah,
And I use them as my buyer's agents. And so I just grew a really big team, and I got really big really fast. I was number 1 in the city, I was number 1 in the state, 8th in the nation, and it only just grew from there, and it just got better and better. I
I love
miss
that.
Lafayette.
I love that. Well, yeah, you're awesome, and I wanted to hear that backstory because I was actually just thinking that the other day about how Katrina affected our local market in the South, and I know a lot of places like Houston and Lafayette and everybody else, Baton Rouge. I know a lot of cities. Really, the makeup of those whole cities changed drastically after 2005. Whenever Katrina hit, I remember when I bought my first house, I closed on my first home that I owned on the day that Katrina passed
Yeah.
because Lafayette was not very affected by Katrina. The storm passed and it was light winds, and fortunately we were spared. But the people in New Orleans, it was absolutely devastation, and you feel deeply for those people. And a lot of really great people are spread out around the course of Louisiana and through Texas that came from that situation. So
I'll
it
never
changed our
forget.
market. It's crazy.
I'll never forget the phone calls that I got. I had one man call me and he said, "My entire family, we have lost everything, and we were living in the Cajun Dome on the floor. Please, I'm begging you to find a house for us and do it quickly." And I mean, it was call after call after call like that. And then all of these major companies like Shell and Exxon and Halliburton, they were buying all of this property for their employees. I mean, millions and millions of dollars of houses just going off the market because these companies were buying up all of the real estate. And it was like it was just insane, the population growth. It was really sad, but it was also very good because I believe that Lafayette truly welcomed the Katrina and Rita victims with open arms, and we were able to receive that population growth, I think, well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like imagine the entire inventory of a real estate market completely sell out within a day. Like that was a crazy time. Like that was one of the craziest times in real estate to be in real estate in 2005. That was absolutely insane.
Oh,
I
let
couldn't
me
believe
tell
it.
you, I had just bought this eightplex, okay? This rundown eightplex for like $67,000, okay? And it was Section 8, and I was renting it out to people. When Katrina happened, okay, all of the inventory went away. There was no more inventory. They were desperate for rentals. I had just picked that property up for $67,000. I looked at my partner, I said, "This is the only time that we will be able to take advantage of this and sell this at a number that's gonna be unbelievable. We'll never see it again." Amy, I turned around and sold that eightplex for $137,000.
Nice.
within 2 months of having that property, and it was because there was such a huge demand for rentals. It was
Yeah.
crazy, crazy,
Yeah.
crazy.
That's Yeah, absolutely. So look, let's get into some good stuff, right? So you are over there in the Shreveport Bossier area. You're growing agents, you're loving on agents. Let's talk about agents, okay? So
Yes.
that's the premise of the pod. We're here to share knowledge and value for agents. And you just got back from Tom Ferry, so you're all fired up. So let's talk about agents right now. Let's talk about agents that are looking to level up their business. What are you telling them? What are you teaching? What are you training on as far as agents who are leveling up their business, and maybe give us a couple of examples of some agents that are doing well in your market and what they're doing every day.
So, the agents that are doing really well are the agents that are structuring their days and utilizing their time management. So, they go in and they schedule a certain time that they're gonna prospect, and during that prospecting time, you are undisturbed, and they are calling FSBOs, they are calling expireds, they're calling, just regular real estate, their center of influence, and every single day they're calling and making these phone calls, and they're either building their center of influence or they're getting expireds or FSBOs. Give you a prime example. I had one agent last year. He was averaging 2 to 4 transactions a year. He started doing the strategies that I put in place, and he is now up this year. I think it's between 24 and 27 transactions thus far. And it's
Nice.
because he's so committed to time management. If you can commit to time management and prospect every day, no matter how big of an agent you are, if you prospect every day, and then also I have agents that actually go and role play, where they will go and role play for listing presentations or objections or whatever. And I'll get into these big group calls where all of these agents are talking and role playing and doing objections, and they are number 1 in their industry across the board. So, no matter how big you are, it doesn't matter. If you're not prospecting and putting something in that pipeline at all given times, you're gonna end up failing.
Yeah,
You
I
always
love
have
that.
to prospect.
I love that, and that's the most important thing for realtors to understand is this the game that we're in. We're in the prospect game. We're not in the social media game. We're not in the influencer game. We're not in the even as a salesperson, we're not in the sales game. We're in the prospecting game. So, what's your favorite way to like prospect? What do you think is the best way that we have as agents to prospect and reach people right now? What do you feel like that is?
You gotta pick up the phone and call somebody. You cannot email somebody, you cannot text somebody. You actually have to get on the phone, pick up the phone, and call people, whether it's your center of influence, a for sale by owner, an expired, whatever. Pick up the phone and make a connection. And listen, these agents do it all day, every day, and they get rejection after rejection after rejection, but they also get the yeses, okay? They get a lot of yeses, and they are transforming their businesses because they are establishing relationships with people outside their center of influence. And so if you're committed to doing that daily to grow your center of influence, then I encourage you to either farm a property where it's a huge subdivision and you're gonna farm it and talk with people that, just listed a property or a house went pending. Even talking about local market trends or how much, I just had a listing in one subdivision. I sold it for $165 a square foot. Well, the average square foot price over there was like 159. So once I got that price per square foot as high as I did, I started making phone calls to everybody in the neighborhood and said, "Hey, listen, I just sold this house in your neighborhood for $165 a square foot. Are you wanting to move, or do you know anybody that would like to, that's moving?" And so that is how I start these conversations. I pick up the phone and actually start calling people and letting them know what the market's doing in that particular subdivision. I've seen big success in that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I love like making phone calls around like what I call is like a juicy secret, right? Something that like you need to know about, right? Something that you would call your friend about, right? You just heard so and so is getting married, or heard so and so is getting got pregnant, or whatever. Like it's a juicy secret, right? So like for you, that juicy secret right there was, hey, I just sold a property at $165 a square foot. You guys know anybody that wants to take advantage of that opportunity? So
Exactly.
it's a juicy secret, right? Or hey, you've got this foreclosure property that came up on your street, and here's some basic details about it. You know anybody that wants to take advantage of a foreclosure property right now, and it's a great opportunity, and there's a lot of equity to be made. We've got it priced well. So like people love to know like a juicy secret. So I always say like when people are making calls, like think about it in a frame that you're calling a friend, you're telling them a juicy secret, and you're like, just giving them something fun. And then that really takes the pressure off of like you feeling like you're calling to sell them something. I
Yes.
feel like that takes a lot of pressure off of
And
that.
whenever you can create a conversation where you're not selling, but you're educating, people tend to receive that better because you're not coming off as a salesman. You're coming off with straight educational stuff. Hey, listen, a house in your subdivision just sold for $165 a square foot. The average was 159. I just raised it $6 a square foot. Do you know how much money that is difference in a sale of a property? And so you go and you talk about the neighborhood and what the advantages are of having that price per square foot, okay? And then how many people are selling in that market right now and what the demand is. For me, days on market, you have got to know how to price your properties. If you do not know how to price your properties right and competitive and educate your seller as to why you have that certain price, okay, and for what reason, and you give them proof, look, these are the comps, boom, boom, boom. This is why we need to put it at this price, okay? I came in actually at a lower price than I would normally go, but I still got $165 a square foot, and I had it listed at 100 and I think it was 159 or $160 a square foot. So we still got 5 more dollars per square foot. And it was because of all the different things and advantages that I was doing to get that raised.
Let's talk about consistency in our real estate business. And we had chatted about kind of agents and their presence and how they look online. What's important to your agents as far as like how they're showing up, not only on the phones, not only to the office, but also showing up online? And how does that look? And how are you training them to show up online as well?
So, how I'm training them is you have to get your branding consistent on all major platforms. So, social media, you've got Facebook, you've got LinkedIn, you've got X, you've got TikTok, you've got Instagram, you've got all these social media sites, including Zillow, Homes.com, Realtor.com. The most important thing for you to do is to go on every one of those platforms, make sure that your background picture is exactly the same. It reflects something in your business, because what I learned was that a search engine is going to read a background picture before it actually reads your actual picture. So they say if you are consecutive with your background picture, okay, your cover picture and all of your branding, that it will start to find you quicker. So I have told all of my agents, get on every platform from LinkedIn, realtor.com, Facebook. Make sure you've got the same picture. Make sure you've got the same cover page. Make sure that your description is the same on all of your profiles. Because the minute someone goes and Googles your name, you want all that stuff to pop up, which it will if you're consecutive across the board. And that's the most important thing, is just being consecutive with your branding across the board.
Gotcha. Yeah, absolutely. And let's talk about consistency too, because I think that's a big part of our
Oh, yeah.
business right now is I feel like the realtors who are having success in our business are those agents who have shown up and have shown up with value for a long period of time. So let's talk about consistency and how important that is to realtors right now.
Well, I know that the agents that are time management skilled, and they work time management well, are the ones that are getting it. And they're using different platforms, to generate leads. They're always looking online, for sell by owners, expireds, withdrawns, whatever it may be, and they're consistently calling these people every single day. And if they're not calling them, they're calling their center of influence. "Hey, do you know anybody that needs to do real estate right now? Do you know that I'm in real estate? Let me tell you a little bit about what I do." You want every single person in your database to know that you are a realtor and that you're the go-to when it comes to real estate. And that's what, I explain to all of my agents. No matter what you're doing, you're always branding yourself. I go walk into Academy one day and I have my Century 21 shirt on, okay? I was approached by 3 different people in Academy. "Are you a real estate agent? Do you do real estate? Oh, you're with Century 21?" That was open conversations, free open conversations that I could have and established relationships with every one of these people, and by the time it was all said and done, they had my card in their wallet. And so it's always talking about real estate in everything that you do. The branding is the most important thing. Jamie, you and I always used to wear name tags. Always. We walked around with our little Century 21 name tags because Jay would push that on us. "Wear your name tag." Well, we did. And guess what? People would approach us, ask us questions. We get properties. You got to live, eat, and breathe it.
Absolutely. Well, look, I figured we would blow through 30 minutes no problem because we're cut from the same cloth. We're old friends from back in
Yeah.
the day. And I always like to end every single podcast this way. I like to end it by saying, speak to an agent who may have had some struggles in their business. Maybe they've had a tough 2024. Maybe they're off to a little bit of a slow start in 2025. Speak to an agent that may be discouraged in their business right now, and then we'll close it out.
Can I tell you a story, Jamie, that
Absolutely.
and this is a pretty deep story. I hope it's gonna be okay. I think it'll be okay. But to talk about real struggles and perseverance. So, at the height of my career, okay, when I was blowing and going, my husband ended up leaving one day to go do some contract work in Covington. So he left for a couple of days. Well, at 4:30 in the morning, a man breaks into my house, and he's not there to rob me, okay? Well, thank God I was able to get away from him, and I was able to barricade myself in my bedroom. My dog was attacking him, and all I remember him saying was, "I'm gonna get you." And me screaming, I'm calling the cops, I'm calling the cops. Well, detectives came over the next day and they're like, "Christie, this guy has been stalking you. He's been watching you. We have his DNA, we have his prints, but he's not in the system. And he is someone that is not good. You need to carry." So I lived in utter fear to go to open houses, to go do any type of business, to jump in a vehicle with a buyer, whatever. I had this fear instilled in me. And then 3 months later, I walk into a convenience store at 8:30 at night, and it's just me and the cashier, and a 6'4" man walks through the door with a 45, and he's drugged out. And he's like, "Give me my money or I'm gonna blow this woman's brains out." And he had the gun to my head and was screaming he was gonna blow my head off for like 2 minutes, and it was just me and the cashier. And I just remember my whole life flashing in front of me. I thought, "This is it. I'm gonna die tonight. Done." He ended up robbing 4 stores. He ended up shooting a cop. The cop put 6 bullets in him, and he survived. and I was the only one outside of the cashiers that he had kinda taken hostage, so they said. So those 2 major things happened to me, and it shook me to my core. People could not understand at the time why I needed to walk away from real estate. I was walking away from millions and millions of dollars in real estate. I was going to open up my restaurant. I wanted a change, okay? So that change came, but my whole career, my whole life was based on sales and in real estate. And I knew God would provide again for me one day. And He did 2.5 years ago. After all of my struggles, I came back and I came back with full force. And I just love what I do. I love leading these agents. I believe in them. I love seeing their growth and how they're growing their businesses and investing in properties and just building enormous wealth. And I see it and I'm like, wow, I'm part of that. This is amazing. And so I love what I do. Yes, I was shook to my core. I had some really bad stuff happen to me, but I did not allow that to define me.
I love that. You're so awesome, Christy. I appreciate your friendship and everything through all these years, and you're amazing, and I'm so thankful that God put us in the same room together at Century
Yes.
21 back in 2003 and 2004,
I
and that we
know.
got to connect. And even just this journey, I was telling a few agents I was riding in the car with today, I said, I get to be on a podcast with my friend Christy this afternoon, and it's like, it's such a crazy story how we started at Century
I
21
know.
together, and you called me a couple years back when you got this opportunity to be here at Century
Uh-huh.
21, and have this opportunity in this job. And I remember you called me and you said, "Hey, Jamie, would it be okay if I put you down as a reference for somebody who's worked with me at Century 21 20 plus years ago?" And I said, absolutely, Christy, I would 100% love to say some kind words about you. And they did call me, and I remember saying a few kind words about you, and about your personality and about your resilience in this business. And it's just a beautiful journey. And they are so blessed to have, an amazing leader like you with such a great heart and such a great mission. And I just appreciate your friendship and everything that you're doing with agents, and to come full circle and just be where we were in 2003 and 2004, and just being able to share our journeys and our success and things that made us successful with agents around the country has just been an absolute blessing. So I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah.
an honored to be your friend and to
Same
be
here,
connected to
Jamie.
you. So thank you so much for
Same
being
here.
vulnerable and sharing your story with our audience. And I hope agents, take precaution. Is important, right? Take precaution in everything you do. Be safe, be aware of what your surroundings. Use the apps that we have to check out people and make sure that you're safe. So, but also, take those steps to continue to grow your business, to reach out to people like Christy, like me, and, ask advice if needed. So, Christy, thanks a million for being on the podcast, and thank you for everything that you're doing for agents.
Thank you, Jamie.
All right, y'all. Well, we appreciate you guys listening every week. We launch a brand new audio version of this podcast every Monday morning at 5 a.m. So tune in on all of your favorite audio version podcasts on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all the others. We do launch some of these episodes on YouTube as well. We will put some of Christy's contact information in the details of the podcast. She's an amazing leader. If you guys are ever in that area and you're looking for a great leader, she's amazing, and she's doing big things in the Shreveport-Bossier area. So, Christy, thanks again, my friend,
Thank you. Thank
and I
you.
and I hope that you guys have an amazing day.